I'd like to call the Public Service Committee meeting to order, please. Thank you. And we have everyone in attendance. We have our minutes either on your tablet, and I have them before me. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes from our previous meeting? I have a motion, and I have a second. Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, they pass. Okay. And now we will go. We have no old business in public service, but we do have a number of new pieces before us today. The first one is an ordinance amending, supplementing Title IX General Provisions, Chapter 98, Streets, Sidewalks, to enact Article 10, Management, Administration, and Control of the Use of the City's Public Right-of-Ways in order to implement comprehensive regulations governing access to and placement of facilities and structures within the City of Akron's right-of-way and declaring an emergency.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, we submitted this ordinance today. We would ask for it to be referred. We're going to make a presentation next week on it. You can look over the ordinance and come up with any questions you might have. And then next week we'll give you a full presentation.
Okay, thank you so much. So, is there a motion for, thank you, I have a motion. Is there a second? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, we will refer this item, and we will expect next week for a presentation. How long will that presentation be, would you imagine?
It shouldn't be too long, maybe 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay, the next piece to come before us is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Neighborhood Assistance or his designee to enter into a contract with Ray Bertolini Trucking Company for the demolition of various structures located within the City of Akron and declaring an emergency. John Valley.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, members of Public Service. Ray Bertolini Trucking Company was low bid for our commercial demolitions, and this would pay them for demolitions that they performed from September of 2017 through March 31st of 18. And I would ask for its passage, if I can.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Any concerns? How about, are there any questions from other council members in the room? Councilman Neal.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a question. I know when we demo residential properties that we strip them of anything of value, and of course that goes to Habitat. With this, is there any, I guess, recycling of materials, anything of any value that comes back to either the city or any of our community partners, or is it just demo?
No, this is pretty much just demo, and you alluded to the residential contract that we have with Habitat for Humanity and have for several years. We don't have this built into this commercial contract. When I talk about commercial, I'm talking about large residential, and yes, Habitat could have came in to the large residential and difficult to maneuver are part of this, and a lot of these are smaller commercial structures.
Madam Chair, Mr. Valley, just if those in the industry can give us some insight on if there is any value to maybe looking at assessing the building before we tear it down and see if there are any recyclable materials. I know that's a growing, the deconstruction is a growing industry with people recycling. If there's any, if we can get any money from anywhere, any way, that would help.
Now that Council's approved the VBR last week, I think that's something that we definitely can look at in the future as we're moving forward with that program.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Mr. Valley and I spoke ahead of time, but I believe your pleasure is suspension of rules?
I would greatly appreciate that.
Okay, since these jobs have been completed already. So is there a motion for suspension of rules? Okay, and I have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this will be under suspension of rules.
Thank you.
With a favorable report. Okay, the next piece to come before us is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into an agreement and or legislation with the Ohio Director of Transportation for certain improvements on State Routes 18 and 261 and declaring an emergency.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee, this is a paving job. It would be done by ODOT. It'll be West Market Street from Portage Path to Westgate Circle, and then North Main Street from Ollie Street to Talmadge, and then High Street from East Market Street to Perkins or Martin Luther King.
Thank you. Can you give us a timeline when we're expecting that? I knew that would be your mic. I just knew it. Okay.
Sure. This is on ODOT's resurfacing program for next year. They are just starting to put that program together. One of their first steps is to get the participatory legislation from Akron. So we will be coming back to you with the final legislation once plans are complete, with a much better schedule and some better numbers as well.
Okay, are there any questions from the committee? Are there any questions from other council members? Seeing none, what is your pleasure?
Consent would be fine.
Do I have a motion for consent? Okay, I had a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this will be placed on the consent agenda. Okay, the next piece to come before us is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into an agreement and/or legislation with the Ohio Director of Transportation for resurfacing certain streets and for certain bridge improvements and declaring an emergency.
Yes, this is another ODOT project. This would be East Market Street from Canton Road to I-76, Cyberling Street from Triplet to Archwood, Innovation Way from East Market to Cyberling, and then Vernon Odom from Romig Road to McTaggart. And then there would be some minor bridge repairs on the I-76 ramps at Arlington Street, Innovation Way over the river, and then Wilbeth Road over I-77.
And is this similar to the one we just had? This is for 2019?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions from committee members? Councilman Kamer?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I do have a question since you said Wilbeth Road Bridge. Actually, I just had an email maybe a week or two ago in regards to the exit ramps onto the bridge, where it's more on the exit ramps where the paving is really not so good. Does that have anything to do with this too, or are we able to look at that?
That's currently not in the scope of the project,
Okay.
but we can certainly take a look at that. I think, depending on exactly where, because I'm thinking of Burkhart there, I know that there are some issues. That would probably be our responsibility. But if there are some issues that are within ODOT's jurisdiction, we should be able to ask for them to take care of those.
Because it looks like the photos that I got from the one resident, as you come off the exits on to Wilbeth Road Bridge, just the exit ramps right there where the intersection are real bad. And I could see us making that bridge look really nice and others. And then those little ramps there in the intersection being kind of...
I'll have Mr. Hall look at those ramps and see what, and find out who they're responsible.
I appreciate it. Thanks,
Who
Madam
is
Chair.
responsible.
Any other question? Please, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the previous legislation, just clarification, on our part, there was general operating for $133,000, I think, but this one says the city. Is that the same funding source, or is this the income tax?
Yeah, most likely this will be GO as well.
This is just not city, it's GO?
Correct.
Okay. Are they the same thing?
Well,
General obligation. General obligation.
It'll most likely be a general obligation. Once we have the final numbers in from ODOT, we'll work with planning to see the most appropriate place to put those. But in the past, it's been general obligation.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing and seeing none, what is your pleasure?
Consent would be fine.
Okay, a motion for consent? Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this item will be placed on the consent agenda. Number 7, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into an agreement and/or legislation with the Ohio Director of Transportation for certain improvements on US 224 and declaring an emergency.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is similar to the previous two. This would be resurfacing of US 224 from Kelly Avenue to Hilbish.
Okay, and once again, this will be 2019.
Correct.
Show those orange cones that we see everywhere, they're not going away for a while. Which, I mean, it's okay. The streets are going to be better, so that's okay. All righty, are there any questions from the committee?
Yes, sir.
Any from council? Hearing and seeing none, was that a motion? Yes. Okay, okay, a motion, second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this will be placed on the consent agenda. We have number 8. Number 8 is a resolution expressing support for the mission of Akron Waterways Renewed, or the AWR, to invest in the Akron's environmental future by building infrastructure for the next century that will protect public health and maintain water of the highest quality in the most cost-effective manner while providing local jobs for the citizens of Akron, expressing support for the proposed Second Amendment to the 2014 consent decree with the City of Akron as lodged by the United States with the United States District Court on June the 5th, 2018, and declaring an emergency.
Madam Chair, we have entered into agreements with both the Ohio EPA, the US EPA, and then the Department of Justice to put forth this Second Amendment. And Pat has more information about it, but this is a big day for us.
Yeah, Pat Selman, Akron Waterways Renewed, keeping in line with the mission of the City of Akron to always find the most cost-effective solution with additional benefit in meeting the current dates of our consent decree. We've got before you amendment number 2 of our consent decree, which allows for the substitution of one of the wet weather treatment processes down at the water reclamation facility. Through pilot testing, we've come across a technology that not only is more cost effective, but also better operation-wise. I use the term healthier operation in how it operates and how it utilizes the existing plant facility. The second part of the amendatory modification number 2 includes the substitution of 3 storage tanks with green alternatives with additional conveyance. And the 4th storage tank involves actually a little larger storage tank in order to facilitate system-wide storage. Both of these modifications should have the potential to reduce our amount that we have to borrow of approximately $75 million. And we look for your support. Any questions?
Would this be your preliminary, not preliminary, because I know you've been, I know, Pat, you eat, sleep, and drink this, maybe not drink it, but, so is this just giving you permission to submit what you have formulated here?
The amendment has been submitted and lodged with the federal court, and it's currently under a review period, 30-day review period. And during that review period, we collect public comments for the federal court, for US EPA and Department of Justice. So this is the comment period
and just
for
our
the
support
amendment.
of it.
Yes, just for
counsel.
support
I see.
of the amendment, yes.
I apologize.
Oh, no problem. And we'll also be seeking support from all our stakeholders, which includes the National Park, Metro Parks, Ohio EPA, NEVCO, all their local people.
Okay, thank you. Anyone from the committee have a question? Councilman Fusco.
Yeah, great job. This is, I know we've been working on this for many, many years. I want to thank the service director and engineering and yourself, Mr. Solomon. This is great news. In terms of the 30-day, so in essence, just procedurally, just curious, out of curiosity, procedurally, after the 30 days is over, the court will then collect everything and then make a determination on the amendments to the consent decree? Is that how exactly this works?
Yeah. I don't see John left, so I'll put on my engineering hat and give you a legal opinion.
Okay.
I can't do that. But in my understanding, we have this 30-day period where Department of Justice and US EPA receives all the comments. Then they'll spend 2 to 3 weeks to put together responses to those comments. They'll put it all in a nice package. They'll summarize it, and they'll submit that to the court. And then we'll follow up with several items that we'll submit to the court, along with additional information and some of the details. And then it'll be up to the court to decide. They'll either have a hearing, or they'll accept it and then go forward from there.
Good. No, I just got.
And that could be maybe a 2-month period to get through all that.
It just to get to this point, I don't know if council understands, but to get, but to get, or anyone for that fact, but to get to this point, you guys were like, you know, preparing the EPAs and the court for years and years. I mean, it takes a long time to execute something like this, and that's why Mr. Moore said, this is a big deal for Akron, and it is. It's wonderful work on your part, because it just didn't seem as though, you know, there was a whole lot of movement before, and I know there was a lot of discouragement in terms of, you know, like, you pitch something at them, and sometimes they warm up, sometimes, usually, maybe not, but this is great that they are, and that we're seeing something like this. This is it's a great effort on your part, and it means a lot. Thank you.
And if I could add to that, we really need to commend our Akron Law Department, specifically Brian Bremer, did a phenomenal job working on this, and our outside counsel, Terry Finn with Rexall and Andrus. Those two also drink the water, so great kudos to them.
And I think that's important to note right now, is that this is not an easy task, and it is a continual tweaking and going back and hoping you're wearing the right outfit to get the appeal you want and everything. So it isn't. So it is a great day, and I think this is something that that our residents need to know. You know that, you know, maybe you haven't seen your water bills come down yet, but by gosh, we're working. Well, you're working like crazy to make sure that we're doing everything within our power to make it less of a burden. So that's hard to, I know that's hard for a lot to understand, but I believe it. And this is right here. This is proof that we didn't just submit to what we had put in and said, okay, it's done now, and this where we're going to go, that we continually, and I know I was at a workshop a while ago down at the water plant, maybe a year and a half ago, that talked about new testing we were doing. It's just everything that comes out, we're trying to see where it can help us alleviate the burden of this huge project. So a great day for Akron is true. So John, thank you for starting it off that way. Okay, and I will come back to you on that. Okay,
Yeah,
anybody else from the committee?
Yeah.
Anybody else from the committee? No? Okay.
I just
Councilman Swirsky?
agree with what Mrs. Keith and Mr. Pusko have said. I mean, there's a lot for Akron citizens to be proud of, and I think we're all going to be pleased that you are working so diligently and so persistently to lower the costs of the entire project and to reap even greater environmental benefits by the process that Ms. Keith was talking about, continuous improvement. You're always looking for new ways to upgrade and to accomplish those two goals, and appreciate it.
And I know dear to your heart, Councilman Swirsky, this allows us to implement 2 significant green projects in lieu of building tanks.
And do you, in the savings, do you have an estimate on the savings?
It's a potential of $75 million that we wouldn't have to borrow.
It's fantastic.
Okay, anyone else? Councilwoman.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a suggestion, I see that we're sending this to Assistant Attorney General, United States Department of Justice. Should we be sending it to our congressional members as well, Marshall Fudge and to Sherrod Brown, Tim Ryan? Thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else? Councilman Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know some of us have asked, I know I've asked, and from time to time you give us an update on the total savings of the overall project, but I think at some point, if we could see, if we were to extend that to where it actually reflected in our constituents' water bill, what that savings could be. I mean, I know we're talking about saving on the project, on the back end, but if we could ever see where we can actually reduce it in their actual bill, that would be good. And it may be that we can't, but it would be good to see if we save $75 million here, $10 million here, another $50 million there, and we were to try to extend that into some kind of savings in their water bill, what that will reflect to look like. Thank you.
Okay. There was a motion for suspension of the rules. Is there a second? There's been a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this will pass as suspension of the rules with a favorable report. If there is nothing else to come before this committee, then we will end our, yeah, Councilman Neal.
Just curious, I don't know if Mr. Moore is ready. You said you would have that one report for us on, okay. Trust me, I understand. I just wanted to see. I didn't want to miss out if you did.
Okay. Is there anything else to come before the committee? Motion for adjournment? Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Correct.
I'm going to go ahead and move forward and call a public safety meeting to order, please. All members are present, and we did hold a meeting last week, so can I get approval of those minutes, please? So moved. Second. All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. We do have one new piece in front of us today, and it is a resolution approving and confirming the appointments of Brenda Marina, John Frank, and Dr. Terry Albanese as citizen representatives, and Deputy Mayor for Public Safety Charles Brown as the mayor's designee, and President Margot Somerville and Councilwoman Marilyn Keith as representatives of City Council to the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board, and declare an emergency. And today we have Chief Natco with us. You can come on up here and sit. And just turn on one of those microphones and just kind of explain to us a little bit about the EMS board. I know I was part of it for a few years, but please take a few minutes to explain to our colleagues.
Is that on? Okay.
Okay.
The Mayor's EMS Advisory Board. It's a 9-person board that advises the fire department and advises the mayor on the operation of the emergency medical services for the city of Akron. The 9-person board consists of 3 civilians, 2 persons from council, city council, 1 representative of the mayor, and 3 physicians. The physicians each are the emergency medical directors from the 3 major hospitals in the area, Cleveland Clinic, Akron General, SUMA, and Children's. So that makes up the 9-person board. And we meet quarterly, once every 3 months, and we talk about any hot topics, anything that is of a concern, and go over the basic status of the emergency medical services up to that point. It's a very robust committee, and it's a very useful committee. Any questions for me?
No, thank you, Chief. Do we have any questions for Chief Natco? Councilwoman Sims, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there any reason why it's like Summit County Public Health is not on that?
We had Eileen Shapiro on there for quite a long time, and she represented a civilian. She was a civilian seat. With her new appointment as the Director of Public Health, Summit County, I think her role, she was too busy in her primary job to really support this. So there is no reason for that, no. It's just... So,
sorry. Commissioner Donna Scota runs Summit County Public Health. Eileen Shapiro probably was on there, but she's now county executive. I'd be interested, just when I think about the incident, like the Ebola crisis that we had a few years back, how important that would have been to have the voice of the Summit County Public Health as a part of that. So, I don't know if we make it 10 members, I don't know.
We are in a very close relationship with Summit County Public Health. Donna, Eileen, we talk to them on a regular basis, especially when there's an issue. So I don't know if we really need them on the board, but we have a very open line of communications with both those individuals.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Mr. Hoke?
Yes. Is this a city or is this a county board?
A city board.
City board?
Yes,
okay. So we wouldn't necessarily have Summit County on our city board?
Correct. If they would be there, I think it would probably be as a citizen.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hope. Councilwoman Keith, please.
Maybe also one thing just for my colleagues that haven't been at a meeting, because why would you, but a lot of times if there is a complaint or something that has happened, like a catastrophic whatever, these 3 hospitals will say how they dealt with it. So we have a good idea of the breakdowns and how the flow was to prepare us for another, because the EMS board is in there. So actually, the reports that we look at normally have already happened, and it's just to give us a better indication of where our strengths are and where we need to shore up sometimes. And one thing that that I would not have known had I not been on the board is that it's very difficult for us to be running that. This is probably the most cost-effective way we could run it as a city, is to have, we have a private ambulance service that supports us in doing what we do, going to our calls and everything. So we look at our partnership with that independent company that the city is working with also to see, are we blending, are we meeting the needs that we need to meet on all wards, not just on some, but on all wards. And I will tell you, the best information we normally get is from our hospitals of how the wait time is, and they're always improving something. So it's very informational, but normally things have already happened, and that's what we look at. It's what's already taken place. Would you say that's correct, Chief?
Yes, when we meet quarterly, we review the last quarter, everything that has occurred. For instance, you mentioned Ebola. When that came up, that was a very big topic for us at the quarterly meeting. The opiate crisis that that has hit our city and the county, that was and still continues to be a very big topic. So we're very much in tune and reactionary to what is going on, and I guess potentially what could go on.
Yeah, and I echo what Councilwoman Keith said. It's a very good board. I learned a lot over the last couple of years being part of it. You work very hard. You don't get enough credit.
Thank you.
You do work very hard. So it was good and bad experience for me. So thank you, Councilwoman Sims.
So it's always good to learn more about the boards that we don't know a whole heck of a lot about. But to the point you raised, the hospitals, even after Ebola crisis, missed the mark on a number of indicators, particularly how we got back into the community and got information out, and they came here and kind of shared that information. So it just seems, instead of waiting till the cow gets out of the barn again to put a fence up, that just makes more sense to have them already at the ready as a part of the committee. That was my thinking. The reason why I was thinking Summit County Public Health is because the city no longer has its own health department because it's kind of combined with the county. And so I always probably say Summit County Public Health because that's what we have. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments from anyone? All right, with that, Chief, I'm going to ask the committee if we can put this on the consent agenda.
Motion for consent?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thanks again for all your hard work with that. We're adjourned. Thanks.
Chief?
Thank you. Have a good day.
He can be a moderator. Good one.
Public utilities will start in 1 minute.
Oh, you're right. Okay. Okay. I'll let you and Bob get together and discuss it. I'm sorry. Yeah. You were right then. You were right.
If public utilities, Kilby, Swirsky, I don't know where Hoke went. Hoke? Oh, okay, we're gonna wait a second.
It's interesting.
just waiting on Hope. He said to the restroom.
Probably what happens is like just south of the bridge, there's a hill and it flows south to it.
So I went to see him to see the city. I can't even remember.
How many years ago was that?
25.
Yeah, okay.
And he goes, he looks at it and goes, well, yeah, our water supply. And that's when they were buying up the land along. Yeah, well, that's pretty radioactive.
I never thought of that.
Yeah.
But they're gonna shut it down, aren't they?
I don't know, sometimes it looks like they're gonna shut it down, and sometimes they're saying, oh, we're gonna bring it back and use it.
You know, I don't know.
They seem to be bringing so much trouble.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with that. I mean, it's a good idea.
It's really impressive.
What is the,
They're gonna quit burning coal. It's great. They're gonna switch to natural gas.
good.
Yeah, what is it about? I got this friend who's done this stuff. He's like this.
Very few Jewish people, but everybody's got most of them. And it was all ethnic whites mostly, but my father came from.
There were some guys in my complex.
My father came from the farms. He was like married. My mother lived in Bedford, and she went live in the country. So when I was a kid, we moved to the neighborhood. We worked on the railroad. I was going to tell you. We had a farm on Park. Yeah, it was for 22 rooms. We had one. I remember when they built it too. We go out there like at least once a week to see what came from it. Sometimes, especially, yes. You know, Albany Mornings is by chance. I got off from too. And I would take a jog from almost Cosby, which across the. We used to go straight through. Yeah. No, I'd like to go there. It'd be good. But I think we missed the boat. We should take our time. So I couldn't go out. And all of a sudden, we were doing that kind of tree. Exactly what I said. We're doing that. He said, I know. Yeah, they wonder. You should trust us. John Moore
We have all Public Utilities Committee members present except for Councilman Freeman. Can I get a motion and approval of our previous meeting minutes, please?
Motion for approval?
Can I get a second? All in favor?
Yeah. Yeah, you are. You're good. You ask good questions.
All in favor? Opposed? Ayes have it. We have one piece in front of us this afternoon. Ordinance authorizing Director of Public Service or his designee, after publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts for mowing services for public property, including water distribution and pump station sites, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Moore?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee, we lost our current, or I guess he'd be our former mowing person. This would allow us to rebid it and get someone else to fill those shoes. In the meantime, we're mowing it with Parks Maintenance. So the facilities around town that you see, the little brick buildings with the pumps in them, we're mowing them with Parks Maintenance. So we would appreciate suspension of the rules so we can hurry up and get this out and bid it. and let Parks get back to doing what Parks does.
Okay. Any questions from committee members? Mr. Kilby?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Loesch, how many sites are there in the city that we're talking about?
I think there's around 30 sites that, most of them are pump stations or water storage tanks, and then there's some extraneous properties.
So what happened to the other guy? He just didn't want to do it, or
He could not meet the terms of the contract through the purchasing department.
he wasn't doing the job? Oh,
He actually
disqualified.
started mowing for us, but he couldn't get the bond he needed.
Oh, why does he need a bond? I mean, I guess for insurance reasons? I
One of the
mean,
rules
liability?
of the purchasing department.
How much of a bond is?
It's only
what he-
$1,000. He
40?
said he
That's not
couldn't
that
make it.
much, is it?
Only 1,000, he said.
Okay.
Couldn't make it.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
Motion for suspension of rules?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Ayes have it. We have nothing else coming before us, so we are adjourned. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Moore.
Really? Half a dozen? Yeah. Yeah.